Hello, my love. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Dustina. This is Spiritual Boujee Astrology. And this is a meditative rant video about a giant freaking elephant that's in the room. And I'm going to be honest, whenever I say these next few parts, there's going to be a lot of people that does not like this video. And I do not care. I don't care. I don't care. Some of you, when you approach me out in the real world, I'm not even talking about like over Zooms and stuff like that. I mean, in the real world, and you go into panic attack mode for no reason, where people can see you. And then on top of that, I've got so many people in my DMs or get hitting me up on Zoom and they're having their own little panic attacks. It tells me that it's time to put this into a more clear, concise, like following. And what I say next, again, it's not going to make me popular. It's not going to be things that people want to hear. But the thing is, it's real and it's true. Exactly where we are at in society for the collective is exactly where I said we would be a freaking year ago. A year ago. Now, I do meditative rant videos, and whenever I do these videos, they're more focused on like whatever's going on in the energy pattern and stuff that I start to pick up on at certain times. And then whenever I feel like it's about the right time to bring it up to everybody, that's whenever I bring it up. Where we are at right now as a collective, as a society, I said in a meditative rant video a year ago would happen. A year ago. There are 4 astrological markers that will be occurring or are already at play, depending on how we're saying this next part, that speak to historically the markers for war. 4 of them. That's an odd thing to say because not every marker is the same. They speak something different each time. And to have 4 of them happening in such close time spanned proximity tells me that if we go with what has happened historically, that shit's going to get real. Now, I will say at the end of this, I will play devil's advocate. And I will talk about other things that will kind of soften part of the blow, but I'm not going to sugarcoat anything with what I say next. Whenever it comes to what's going on in the astrology, there are 4 major markers that have historically proven to be markers for war, markers for revolution, markers for change. We have been in a major energetic change for quite some time. I have been clear about that, as clear as I can be for the collective consensus as I can be. When you start fine-tuning things down for an individual, that alters some of what I say sometimes, but for the majority of the collective, I try to stay as clear and concise as possible. Now, the meditative rant video I did in February of 2024 was the start of a Venus, Mars, Pluto triple conjunction in Aquarius. And what I had stated back then, and I even provided the historical references back then, is that there is something about Mars, Pluto, things that were being discussed, planned, worked through, communicated, little things that were coming together that for many of us would not be directly seen. In February of last year, that would be a part of the rollout, the frustration, the enclave of where we are at right now. Because there was going to be a repeat transit, but mirrored in reverse. And the transit that I'm talking about is one of the transits that actually initiated parts of World War II. So historically speaking, we're going to go backwards and bring it back forwards to tie those parts together. And this is marker number 1. At the beginning of World War II, and I have the charts to prove this, So let's go straight to that. Like I've already got the charts to prove it. So let's go with that. The beginning of World War II, on July 22nd of 1938, there was a Mars-Pluto conjunction that happened at 29 degrees of Cancer. Now, again, this is a reverse point from before, and I will tie the reversal together here in just a minute. But when I went back and I checked the historical accuracy of this date, it was around this time, the July 22nd, 23rd, 1938 timeframe, that this is actually when Hitler started to require for people to go and register their status. If they were a gypsy, if they were a Jew, or if they were an African American, if they were not the superior race. And at that time, we did not understand the full implications of that required registry. And at that time, there was no war. Okay? Okay. The following year, in 1939, by then Pluto had moved into Leo, opposite of where he's at right now. This is why I said a mirrored reversal. Okay? One element, opposite of where he's at right now. And over the course of the summer in 1939, summer to fall, there was a Mars retrograde that went between Capricorn and Aquarius. The current Mars retrograde is the opposite, Leo and Cancer. But the pattern is the same. It's just the results are going to be different. Now, I'm not going to go through all the historical accuracies from back then. I am, again, still going to link my previous Meditative Rant video where I cover that in the description. I'm not covering all of it, but I'm going to do a very long synopsis short. In that particular Mars retrograde, there was a part of World War II that was known as the phony war. And there was a bunch of things that were being done by people in power to scare the masses. Mars retrograde in Aquarius to scare people. Aquarius is a sign that represents the collective society, people, masses. We need to disrupt them. We need to disturb this area. And with Pluto being in Leo, a sign that has to do with the sun and power of an individual, power of the ego, the Mars retrograde in Aquarius made people flock to new people in positions of power. And notice how I said new. Pluto had just moved into Leo. And one of the things that started to happen throughout World War II was officials becoming dictators. So not just one particular area, not one particular vibration. There was a pattern. Now, some people forget the reason there was the openings for dictators to come into power was because after World War I, the monarchies fell. The majority of World War I was a fight between monarchies. And the sad part was all of the monarchies were cousins. You know, they were all related. But half of the monarchies fell after World War I. World War II, we had an influx of new power, Pluto in Leo. And a lot of that was very much centered around dictators. People scared about what was going on, they flocked to the new people in power because they thought those new people were going to protect them because they're just like you and me, right, Bob? Whoever Bob is, I'm just going to say that. That happened. Now, the part of the phony war that I'm talking about was there was a big part of World War II where they were bluffing. They were pushing an agenda. They were pushing a narrative. And Germany was trying to push to get attacked. And they put out false claims that they were attacked by Poland. It wasn't true. They were pushing a narrative to scare the people, to get behind people in their new positions of power. And by the end of that Mars retrograde, World War II was fully enacted. Europe wise. America was not in there yet. Over there on the other side. I apologize for my European listeners. I am in America. So there's that. On that other side. Now, let's tie that time frame to now and why I'm saying it's mirroring it, but it's a reverse mirror. Before, Pluto went into Leo and started that vibration. But now we have Pluto in Aquarius. Pluto is in the power of people. The Mars retrograde has been going between Leo and Cancer. Mars in Leo, people that shouldn't be doing certain things, they're abusing power, are going to be uprooted. They're going to be seen for doing exactly that. And with Pluto and Aquarius, it's going to piss a lot of people off. Now, the Mars retrograde does end in the month of February, and I know that. February of 2025. However, there will be a vibration that immediately follows it that I keep saying is going to be a reaction to everything that has occurred. And that's going to be something that takes place in the future. And I will get to that here in a minute. But there's something about the end of the Mars retrograde and going through all of the oppositions to Pluto that requires us to complete the full cycle of understanding just how far the abuses of power are going to go. Now, tying one extra meditative rant video into this, the one that I did in December regarding the Jupiter-Saturn square, I talked about it being a turning point in the first 20-year cycle of the entire 200-year cycle. Whenever it comes to where we're at right now compared to anything else that has happened in the last 200 years, there is a different type of intellectual awareness. People are capable of actually understanding and knowing what they're going through and make different cognitive choices. But it's still a matter of choice. And we've got to get through some things for people to truly understand that level of choice. All right. With Pluto being in the sign of Aquarius, people are far more aware of the power that they can have, that they can wield. Their voice is stronger. They're stronger in numbers. And one of the things that I said a year ago that would start to play out in this time frame that I'm still waiting for this one to fully kind of come to fruition is that depending on how much abuse of power there is, it can also evolve into new leaders who are capable of challenging those people that abuse power. I'm still waiting on that part to come to fruition. I'm sensing it. I'm feeling it. Hasn't happened yet. Let me know whenever you start to see them. Send me their info. I don't want to talk. Okay, moving along. Marker number 1, the Mars retrograde opposite Pluto. Now, marker number 2. These are not in any particular order, just has to do with the way this is the way it came through my meditation. Pluto in Aquarius. So take the Mars retrograde part. Let's just talk about Pluto in Aquarius. The last time Pluto was in Aquarius, we were in the American Revolution. We were overthrowing English rule. We were becoming the United States of America. But this wasn't the only country that was going through revolutions. Even the South American countries that had been underneath Spanish rule started to overthrow, so that way they didn't fall underneath the same levels of monarchies. They would have been Spanish monarchies versus English monarchies, but they did overthrows. The French Revolution, ha ha ha, the end of the French monarchy, going into, everything Napoleon did. That all falls into a Pluto and Aquarius timeline. The power of people growing. Historically speaking, Pluto in Aquarius has resulted in major revolutions. Now, revolutions will change each time, but one way to revolt is to be at war. It's just not as direct of a war. This isn't my side of the line versus your side of the line. It's very different. But there's still a marker for revolution whenever you think of the fact that Pluto is now in Aquarius. And I'm going to remind everybody, the area of the sky where Pluto is, and again, I talked about this in in December's Meditative Rant video about Saturn and Jupiter. We are at a turning point of awareness that people are far more aware and educated and knowledgeable in things. And that is going to start to speak volumes with how we go into the spring of 2025. I said it before, I'm saying it again. And again, I will reference that Jupiter Saturn video in the description of this episode. Marker number 3, one that we have not talked about before, had no reason to talk about it. I have hinted about it, been doing my historical research, not going to get into all the history of it quite yet, but I'm still going to bring it up in one fashion because, again, I can show a chart for it. And that is Neptune in Aries. Now, again, Neptune in Aries has not started yet. No, this doesn't actually start until March, the end of March, and it will immediately follow the out of sign eclipse that's going to happen in Aries. But let's talk about the start of the American Civil War. American Civil War started in Fort Sumter, Sumter. I'm not saying that right. I'm adding an extra letter in there, I feel like. Anyways, South Carolina, right outside of Charleston. Now, I've got this on April 12th, 1861. April 12th of 1861 was the start of the American Civil War. But if you've noticed, like, if I bump this little April 12th by one day, just one day, to April 13th, oh, look at that. Neptune moves into Aries. Let me repeat that, babies. Within the same 24-hour span of the American Civil War, Neptune moved into Aries. I never hear anybody talk about that. I really don't. Every time I hear people talk about war, I hear them talk about what I'm going to talk about as number 4 here in a minute. I always hear that comparison, but I never hear them compare Neptune to Aries. But let's talk about a little bit of the history of what happened with that Civil War. Now, most people know North versus South. I'm not getting to that part. I'm doing the economics real quick. Right before the Civil War, there had been a financial panic. It's literally called the Panic of 1857. And it loomed over everyone until 1861, when the war started. That war, as horrible of a stain as it is on American history, took us out of a recession. It took us out of depression. And it put a whole bunch of people to work. It put a whole different spin on what was going on in society. And it was also the marker of new industries, the end of old industries and the starts of new ones. Now, whenever I personally focus on Neptune and Aries, I do focus on the new inventions, the new technology, the new medical sciences, and things of that nature. Whenever it comes to Neptune and Aries, there are positives to Neptune and Aries. But I also keep saying in the podcast that there's a big energy right now where people are very fueled by their belief systems. If the American Civil War is not an example of people being fueled by their belief systems, believing I'm right and you're wrong, if we're not already experiencing a repeat in history where all of a sudden people want to talk about how they're so much better than another person, a specific race of person, that's a repeat in the history pattern. It's just different targets. Still the same concept. The start of Neptune and Aries is a marker for civil war. we start Neptune in Aries at the end of March 2025. Now, it will be a pinky toe dip. What do I mean? Neptune is going to go into Aries, shake up some shit, turn retrograde, and by the end of the year, we'll actually be back in Pisces, do some final things in Pisces, and then full on take us into Neptune and Aries in 2026. And again, what I said at the beginning of the episode is there's enough markers over the course of a 2-year span, some that are active and some that are not. This is one that is not. That speak to war, that speak to revolution, that speak to change. Neptune going into Aries, number 3. Number 4, the fourth marker that speaks to the elephant in the room, war, revolution, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, Uranus going into Gemini. Every time Uranus has been in Gemini, there has been a war for America, for the United States of America. In the natal chart of the US, which is the Sibley chart, there is Uranus in Gemini. In the American Civil War chart I just showed you, there is Uranus in Gemini. In World War II, we had Uranus in Gemini. And in July of 2025, we will get our first little pinky toe dip of Uranus in Gemini. Now, he will do something very similar to Neptune. He's going to go in, shake up a couple things, turn retrograde, go back into Taurus, turn direct, and then go back into Gemini in 2026. In this 2-year span, 4 major historical markers that speak to war, that speak to revolution, that speak to change, and speak to major changes in the collective and in society. Now, since last summer, I have repeatedly said we are going into a volatile energy that will not let up into whatever the new is going to be until April. Now, I still don't know what that new looks like because we are going to have a response to everything that's going on right now. It's going to come through in the Venus retrograde. That's going to start on March 1st. There is a response to so much of this that has not fully kicked in yet. I am saying this in a timeline where Venus is in shadow. And I am expressing deeply, there are markers for revolution. There are markers for protest. There are markers for war. But now I want to talk about the intellectual awareness. And this is where I'm saying, let's play devil's advocate. Every 200 years, we have a set of conjunctions between Saturn and Jupiter. And wherever their conjunctions are happening, whatever element their conjunctions are happening, tends to lead into where a lot of the changes are happening. In World War II, World War I, which wasn't really a big part of our topic, but it's still spoken about, the Civil War, that far back, going into the American Revolution and everything, the Saturn-Jupiter conjunctions in that 200-year cycle was happening in Earth signs. And that tend to lead to us fighting over territory, fighting over land, fighting over objects, so things that could be tangibly touched, fighting over goods. Now it's different. Because again, the great conjunction that occurred in 2020 between Saturn and Jupiter was at 0 degrees of Aquarius in an air sign. Speaking to a shift in intellectual awareness. And over these last few years, while we have been going through that shift in awareness, there has been a growth in what people know, a growth in knowledge. The individual is smarter now compared to 10 years, 15, 30, 50 years ago. The tools that we have make us more capable. Therefore, the tools that we have give us different opportunities. Please read between the lines on that one. In one way, I am focused on that opportunity right now. My voice going through this microphone, getting uploaded onto the internets and going and doing whatever it does for all of you is one of thousands of opportunities that can be used, be accomplished. Now, one of the things I said a year ago in the Mars Pluto video was that people in positions of power are going to do everything that they can to start to suppress the masses, suppress people. And in one way, we have seen that through what started that startup with the TikTok ban. However, I don't know how many other people saw this, but I know I seen it. And that was right before he got inaugurated. There was this picture that went over the news of him and Jeff Bezos and Zuckerberg and Elon Musk all on like a balcony. It was like right before the inauguration. I want to say it was like the day before or something like that. And I was like, oh, look at that. All the heads of the social media platforms in one area. It might have actually been the day of his inauguration. I wasn't that invested. I'll be honest about that. I'm still a person. There is going to be poise. There is going to be challenges. There are going to be forces to control people and control society. Because once people understand just how they can use their voice, how they can use their intellect, and how they can use their tools to a whole different advantage, people outnumber those who are in positions of power. At the start of the Mars retrograde, one of the things that happened was the United Healthcare CEO getting shot by the Luigi fellow. I can't think of his last name. I know it starts with an M, but I'm not going to murder his name. That was probably a bad way to say that. But it is what it is. I'm not going to tear his name apart because I don't remember exactly how to say it. But Luigi was right at the start of that Mars retrograde. And it was a great example of, again, somebody abusing their power, and Pluto and Aquarius, people on the other side going, yeah, screw him. And since then, because society didn't roast this gentleman, more people sided with him, editing photos to try to be his alibi. I saw so much of that. Because it didn't go the way that people in positions of power, people that run any form of media, whether it is like news media or social media, just media, people that run media, because it didn't go the way they anticipated, they started to do what they could to suppress the story and suppress anything around that guy's name because they didn't want people to use him as a martyr. They don't want him to be the Guy Fawkes of this timeline. But in a lot of ways, he could be. Could, not will, not doing that. I haven't really looked at the guy's chart. Haven't been that invested, just paying attention, little bits at a time. The difference between the prior 200-year cycle and this 200-year cycle is the way we can combat something, the way that we can address things, the way that we can control the narrative, the way that we can control ourselves and how we feed into this energy. Anything that you see on the media has gone through rooms of editors and filters before it ever goes across the television. Anything that you can see on social media, including anything that you see from me, can be very, very skewed from the perspective of who is giving their voice at that moment. And anytime you hear somebody speak, you should question where and how they benefit from saying certain things. I do try to be as objective as possible. I really do. I could be more playful. I could be more cutesy. I could be a ton of different things. I would rather be real than anything else. And luckily, that's part of my chart. And that's one of the things people like about me is I'm just going to cut straight to the freaking point and not sugarcoat anything. The awareness of people is meant to be shaken at this time because the awareness of people is what's going to challenge those in positions of power, especially those that are abusing their power. Now, during this Mars retrograde, specifically this timeline now where Mars is in Cancer, I warned for a very long time, if you do not have control of your emotions, last year, the first go round of Mars in Cancer, how the hell are you going to handle the spring? For some of you, that had to do with what was going on for you as an individual. For others, that was because the collective was going to be so volatile and so crazy. We choose to respond from points of fear. We can also choose to not respond from points of fear and not allowing other people to take that part of our own personal power. Media should not be instigating any level of fear. Social media, again, not instigating levels of fear. Understand that sometimes whatever you are seeing in your algorithm, whatever you are seeing in your feed, is a very accumulated, cultivated, calculated position to push something in front of you, to try to get certain kinds of triggers. Your awareness as an individual to think things through, to troubleshoot things, and look for an alternative is key to being able to handle the vibration that we are in. And the good news, the majority of this vibration is very, very temporary. It will not last. And there will be a response. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. We're not in the response yet, per se. We're building to it. The Mars retrograde is going to end February 23rd. For the majority of us, it's February 23rd. For some of you, it's February 24th. But for the majority of us, it's February 23rd. 5 days later, March 1st, Venus is going to turn retrograde in Aries, in Mars's sign. And what will follow is another series of energies that are all going to impact Aries. Now, as an individual, you should really pay attention to what Aries rules in your chart and understand that that is going to be something that becomes a passion for you. It is going to be something that brings things into focus, that brings things to the forefront, that is going to empower and embolden many, many people to take certain actions, because anyone that has natal Aries placements will tell you sitting still is not an option for them. When the transits move into Aries, sitting still will not be an option for many. Now, again, Venus is going to turn retrograde in Aries. A few weeks later, Mercury will also turn retrograde in Aries. And there's a real interesting dynamic whenever that happens, because what will happen is Venus will have been retrograde. Mercury's going to come in. They're going to make this little conjunction. Right after this conjunction, it's like Mercury's going to stall. Venus will be moving. But then Venus will start up and they will move together out of Aries back into Pisces, making multiple conjunctions to Neptune. Number 3 on the list. Okay. And Venus will be making the multiple conjunctions to Saturn. Mercury will not, but Venus will. They will be making also multiple conjunctions to the North Node. Different conversation. We still have one more Aries eclipse that's going to happen on March 26th. I'm doing that from memory. I don't have that in front of me right now. And then immediately following that, Neptune is going to go into Aries. Hold on. March 29th is the eclipse. So March 29th, Aries eclipse number 3, and then March 30th, Neptune is going to go into Aries. Everything that's starting to build in this vibration is going to be a response to whatever has been tested, thwarted, punished, hurt through Mars and Cancer. I am looking at the fact that in this Mars retrograde, as soon as he goes direct, we immediately have everything going into his sign the way that we will. That's going to be a series of responses. That is going to be a series of reactions. And how people respond and how people react, again, will be a matter of personal choice. Some will be very fueled by their belief systems. Hello, Neptune and Aries. I just showed you what the first time for us as a society that looked like. The first time that happened for America. I just showed you historically what that has looked like for us. Each of the markers that I talked about are very different spans in society, very different spans in the masses, for the collective, where we have been. But again, our awareness is different. Our forethought is different. Now, all in all, I forbid to be scared of Neptune and Aries. I forbid to be scared of Uranus and Gemini. I won't do it. I'm not scared of Pluto and Aquarius, and I'm going through my Pluto square right now. I'm really not scared of it. It's a matter of understanding that this vibration is going to force certain choices. It is going to force certain energies. It is going to have ways of grabbing certain individuals to make certain things happen. And if you are not in a vibration where you feel compelled to make a choice, compelled to take an action, compelled to be in any part of it, then the best thing that I can tell you to do is take a step back. Don't tune in to those areas of social media or actual media. Don't allow people in your surroundings to say things to trigger you. Anytime somebody is going out into the real world and looking for ways to press buttons, they're doing it on purpose. They want the reaction so that way they can find a way to justify their beliefs. Whether that is a good belief for the collective or a negative belief for the collective begs to question. But whenever it comes to the way people are reacting and responding, can make the very big difference. There can be other ways to combat this more intellectually, more fair, versus fighting and other levels of frustration, other levels of reactions. They do not all have to be physical. I'm saying that knowing that I just said all of this crap is going to go into Aries. And again, Aries is the other Mars ruled sign. There is very big difference between Scorpio placements and Aries placements. We are calculated. Aries struggles with that. It is a reactive vibration. I'm warning of reactions. I'm warning of people doing stupid things to hurt others. We are in a period of volatility. We are in a vibration of volatility. I can't sugarcoat that any more than I already have, guys. It is a matter of personal choice, personal decisions, personal preference as to how you handle it, how you let it impact you. And you can either continue to do things to let fear control, or you can find ways to tune parts of it out. Because so much of it is still happening in temporary energy that it tells me that the vibration will not stay long term. We cannot remain in such a long term version of fight or flight. The actions over time will dwindle down, they will subside. And we will have to deal with whatever the result is. We can still make long term decisions and have long term repercussions by making decisions in temporary energy. But that applies to everyone, including those in positions of power. They too will have long term consequences and long term repercussions that will impact them based off the decisions that have been made in recent temporary energy. Don't let things take hold of you, especially so much of it that is out of your control. Now, if you have to take certain actions, if you have to react in a certain way because that is a matter of safety for you, that's a different conversation. But the majority of us, we're not having to do that. We need to understand, we need to pay attention and be prepared for whenever we do feel compelled to react or take an action, to follow some level of suit moving forward. And I think that's coming. I am expecting that. But in this moment, where we're at this moment, we need to be patient before we react. Pay attention, be aware, protect yourself, keep yourself as safe as possible, whether that is through wearing your gemstones, whether that is through smudging the shit out of yourself every time you walk in the door, whether that's with a taser or anything else that goes pew pew. It's all a matter of personal choice. This is not an easy time, and I know that. There are a lot of people that are having their families disrupted. I warned of that. Mars retrograde in Cancer would disrupt families. It would disrupt home lives. That doesn't make it easier to hear. It's not an easier pill to swallow, but I did warn of that. And the multitudes of ways that it can come through. And I've seen the multitudes of ways literally manifest beyond just immigration. I've seen the other ways too. The difference is being able to understand levels of that vibration, understand where we're at in the current energy, and that it is going to shift and change. Now, how you perceive this video is going to be very different for everybody. There's going to be a lot of people that are like, I'm not going to sit still. You got all this that speaks to war, then I'm going to get fucking ready for it. And I know enough rednecks that'll do that. They're already ready. There's a bunch of them. I know it. But there are others that are going to hear this and going to realize just how frustrating the energy is, just how volatile this energy is. Some of you are watching the media and you're seeing the volatility and you're terrified to respond. I'm telling you, this is not that moment of action. It is not time yet to take reactions, to react, to take anything on. It is time to take note. It is time to pay attention. It is time to get an idea. It is time to voice things, but it is not time for full reactions. That'll come later, not too far later, but it will come. I know this last part of the rant is just kind of saying the same things over and over again, but I know people need to hear it. We have 4 markers that speak to war or revolution. I'm saying whatever this revolution will look like will not look like the prior ones. It will not look like anything previous to now. And it is the people that are abusing power that are going to cause a lot of people to want to stand up for themselves. But it's not going to happen overnight. We will see waves of it. We will see potential steps forward, but not the full collective. Not yet. That's going to take time. So if you're one of the people trying to push for other people to take an action and be aware, it's not time yet. If you're one of those people that are having moments where you're just swallowed by fear, you're allowing other people to have control over your mind completely rent-free. Don't do that. Don't let other people control so much of who you are. They are not better than you. They are not stronger than you. But they will do everything in their power to make you feel inferior and make you feel weaker. And the moment that they realize they have some kind of power over you, they will do things to exacerbate that and to make you feel worse. Do not give them that power. These are the best things that I can say to a lot of people right now. Pay attention, be aware, use your voice, be strategic. And as the energy starts to shift later and there's more in the collective that can actually do more and say more and overcome obstacles, I'll say something. But this moment, it's a reality check. We need little things that kind of push a wave through everybody so people can remember what they need to see, so they can learn what they need to learn. There are the reasons for these little checks in the energy, in the vibration. It is to bring different levels of awareness. Once full amounts of awareness are encapsulated, then will come the reactions, both positive and negative. It's going to get worse before it gets better. And that's the clearest thing that I keep having to remind everybody. It's going to get worse before it gets better. Okay, as hard as it is to believe, I love and appreciate every single one of you. I will talk to everybody very, very soon. Subscribe.